You ever hear of a place that doesn't show up on maps anymore? A town swallowed whole by silence, where the streets bleed, not metaphorically, but with warm, pulsing blood that stains your shoes and never dries. Journalist Mia Langston went there to find answers. She left behind a broken camera, a name carved in flesh, and a warning that came too late. Now, Davenmoor is calling again. This isn't just her story. It's about what we choose to remember, and what remembers us back. Because once you know the name, you're already part of it. Part 1. The red stains on the road. They say the streets of Davenmoor bleed under the full moon. Not metaphorically, not in some poetic, overwrought way. They say actual blood seeps up through the cobblestones, warm, fresh, and without a single visible source. No accidents, no bodies. Just blood, crawling through the cracks like something alive. I came to find the truth. My name is Mia Langston, journalist, rational, grounded. I've spent my career debunking myths, haunted bridges, cursed dolls, forgotten towns with sinister reputations. They always had an explanation, but not Davenmoor. The first thing you notice when you cross the old wooden bridge into town is the silence. It's not peaceful, it's choked, like the world's holding its breath. Trees press in too close, their branches sharp and leafless even in spring. The fog hangs low, heavy, like it's weighing down the buildings themselves, and there are no birds, not a single one. Just the soft hum of wind through hollow chimneys. The main road was narrow and cracked, lined with sagging houses that leaned like drunks clinging to each other for support. I expected boarded-up windows, but most were wide open, just black, empty rectangles staring out like sockets in a skull. I found the inn near the centre of town, Grail House, the faded sign read, its letters half erased by rain and time. The building leaned slightly to the left, shingles missing, porch creaking under my feet. I knocked. The door opened before I touched it a second time. She stood there, like she'd been expecting me. "You're here for the bleeding," she said. Not a question, but a grim acknowledgement. Her eyes were pale and clouded. Her skin stretched too tightly over sharp bones. She wore black, all black, and her hands trembled just enough to notice. "Rooms upstairs. End of the hall. Don't go out after sundown." I asked her name. "Edith Grail," she replied. "My family built this place, before the blood came." I wanted to ask more, but she turned and vanished into the darkness of a back hallway, her footsteps swallowed by the floorboards. I carried my bag up the stairs, every creak sounding like it echoed for miles. My room was small, sparse, one window, one bed, one crucifix nailed upside down above the headboard. I didn't sleep that night. I waited, and when the moon climbed over the hills, I stepped outside. The cold hit me like a wall, sharp, metallic, biting, the kind of cold that sinks into your gums. The streets were empty, the fog thicker than before, curling around the houses like fingers, and then I smelled it. Iron, not rust, not the damp rot of an old town. Blood, sharp, fresh blood. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw it, just a few feet from the inn, crawling out between the cobblestones like sap from a tree, thick, red, and pulsing. I knelt down. It was warm, real. I pulled out my camera, hit record. The screen stayed black. I checked the lens, clean. The battery, full. The display glitched, flickered red for a moment, then nothing. Dead. I looked up. The fog had thickened around me, swallowing the buildings. The light from the inn's window had gone out, and I wasn't alone. There was something in the fog. I couldn't see it, only the suggestion of movement. A ripple in the mist, a shadow too tall, too thin, watching me, not moving, just there, staring. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it never moved. Maybe it was always standing in the exact same place, like a painting etched into the fog. I couldn't tell. I didn't want to know. I backed away. Slowly. My boots slipped in the blood, now spreading in veins across the street, running like rivers through the town. I heard something then. Not a voice. Not words. Just breathing. Deep. Wet. Like something breathing through water. I turned and ran, back into the inn, up the stairs, into my room. I slammed the door, locked it, shoved a chair under the knob for good measure. The air in the room was colder now, not from outside. It came from beneath the floorboards. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard it. Again, breathing. Closer this time. As if it had followed me inside. As if the very house inhaled and exhaled when no one was watching. And then the crucifix on the wall fell. I didn't touch it, didn't go near it. It just dropped. Straight down, like an invisible hand had pried it loose. I picked it up. The nails holding it to the wall were still bent. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the bed, camera in my lap, trying to convince myself I'd hallucinated, that the fog had played tricks on my mind. That maybe the blood was just rust, or dye, or runoff from something I couldn't explain yet. But I couldn't shake the feeling I had out there. That someone, something, had been waiting for me. Not watching, waiting, like I'd stepped into a place that remembered pain, and now it was remembering me. Morning came, the blood was gone, the streets were dry, my camera worked again. The recording I made, just static, 30 solid minutes of it, except one frame. I went through it, frame by frame, 29 minutes of nothing. Then, one image, a face in the fog, not mine, not Edith's, and not human. I don't know what I saw, not yet, but I think Davenmoor knows I'm here, and I think it's hungry. Part 2. The names etched in flesh. In the grey hush of Davenmoor's morning, everything felt bleached of life. No birdsong, no wind, just the crunch of gravel under my boots and the dry creak of sagging buildings, like the town itself was trying. Not to breathe too loud. I'd barely slept. My dreams kept pulling me under, not into blackness, but into blood. Thick, rising, choking blood that filled my lungs before I could scream. And just before I woke, I always heard it. The voice, whispering beneath the surface, humming in a rhythm I swear matched the beat of my heart. I needed answers. Most of the buildings I passed looked abandoned, their windows broken or nailed shut. But one stood out, not for its preservation, but for its defiance. A small stone church at the edge of the town square, sealed with boards darkened by rot and something else, something red. I pried one loose and stepped inside. The air was wrong, not stale like old buildings usually are. Wet, like a cellar after a flood. The pews were warped, streaked in dark stains. Blood, dried and flaking. It was everywhere. On the floors, on the walls, smearing handprints that led toward the altar like someone had crawled there, or been dragged. And then I saw the names, carved into the altar, deep and jagged, like someone had etched them with a blade in a panic. Dozens of them, some old, barely legible, others newer, crisp and clean. Some had lines struck through them, some didn't. The most recent, no date, just a single name, freshly carved, as if whoever had done it wanted to make sure it was seen. Leah Grail. I took a step back. That name, it matched the child I'd seen briefly near the inn, peering at me from a second-story window. Pale face, wide eyes, like she knew I didn't belong, like she was waiting for me to find this. I snapped a photo. My phone buzzed in my hand and died again. I turned and nearly screamed. There she was, standing in the doorway. Leah. She didn't blink, just looked at me with those two large eyes, her voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. There's something under the earth, I crouched, trying to stay calm. What do you mean, Leah? Her gaze didn't waver. The names feed it. If they stop, it gets hungry and loud. I asked who told her that. She hesitated, then pointed to the altar. I heard it from them, at night, when the blood talks. Before I could ask more, she turned and ran, slipping through the church door, like smoke. I followed her out, but she was gone. The square was empty again, like she'd never been there. I spent the rest of the day talking to whoever I could find. The few remaining residents weren't eager to help. Most barely opened their doors. A man with cloudy eyes and shaking hands told me to leave before the next full moon. A woman in a veil simply muttered prayers in a language I didn't recognize. Another handed me a single slip of paper through a crack in her door. "It's not the town that bleeds," it read. "It's the thing inside it." That night, the dreams returned. This time, I wasn't drowning. I was floating, suspended in a thick, red sea beneath a ceiling of stone. Something moved below me, enormous, sleeping, but turning in its slumber. Its body brushed the floor of that underground ocean, and blood rose in waves. I awoke, gasping, sheets soaked with sweat, the iron taste thick in my mouth. And then I heard it, breathing. Not mine, not outside. Below, under the floorboards. It was slow, deep, wet. A gurgling inhale, followed by a sluggish, almost painful exhale. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might drown the sound out. But it didn't. The breathing continued, steady, patient. I knelt beside the bed and pressed my ear to the floor. It was there, real, not a dream. It came from beneath the inn itself, from the very foundation. I could feel it in the wood. A low rhythmic tremor, as if the house itself was resting on a lung. I looked to the window. The moon wasn't full yet, but close. 2 more nights, maybe 3. And then, if what Leah said was true, something would wake up, and it would want names. That morning, I went back to the altar. One of the names had changed. Where it had been carved through the day before, it was now filled in again. Not recarved, filled. Like the flesh of the wood had split open and bled into itself. There was no logical explanation. No trick of decay or moisture could do this. Something was alive in that church, and it was keeping track. I don't know why Leah's name is on that altar. I don't know why I can feel heat rising from the floor every time I walk through town now, but I do know this. The names aren't just for record, they're offerings, and Davenmoor is starting to wonder if mine belongs on that list. Part 3. When the ground moans. It took me half a day to find the mine. No one would tell me where it was. They looked away, closed their doors, muttered things under their breath when I asked. But maps don't lie, and the one I found in the back of the inn's desk drawer showed it clear as day. Davenmoor Mine, just past the northern tree line, where the hills begin to sag like the skin of something old and rotting. I followed the overgrown path, ducking under branches that clawed it, my coat like they wanted to turn me around. The trees grew denser with every step, gnarled and twisted, as if they'd leaned into one another in fear. The further I walked, the quieter the world became. No wind, no birds, just my own breath and the crunch of dead leaves beneath my boots. Then I found it. A rusted iron gate stretched across the mouth of the mine like a jaw wired shut, chained, locked. But time had done more damage than any bolt could stop. A section of the wooden fence nearby had collapsed, eaten away by damp and decay. I squeezed through. The entrance loomed like a wound in the rock, a black, yawning gash that exhaled air colder than it should have been. It smelled like copper, like a wound left open too long. I stepped inside. My flashlight flickered. Just once. A warning. I ignored it. The mine walls were slick, not with water, but with something thicker. Red. streaked in places like it had tried to run. It glistened as I moved deeper, casting wet reflections on the stone. The deeper I went, the louder the silence became. A pressing, ringing stillness that vibrated in my ears like static. And then I saw the carvings, crude figures, scratched into the rock with shaky hands, dozens of them. Some bleeding from their eyes, some from their mouths, others from slits down their torsos, gushing streams that pooled into shapes below. Not demons, not monsters, people, but what they bled into. That was something else. A shape, always the same, carved over and over again. A great mass beneath the ground, with tendrils reaching up, curling into homes, churches, even into beds. It was like they were trying to warn me, or confess. I followed the shaft until I hit the barrier, a wooden wall reinforced with metal beams. On it, someone had scrawled in black paint, "Do not wake it." And beneath those words, etched into the wood with what looked like fingernails, another line: "It never stopped bleeding." Beside the wall, half buried under rubble and dirt, I found a leather-bound journal. Pages warped, words smeared by time and damp, but still legible in places. The entries were dated March 1872. The handwriting was frantic. Day 14. We hit something, not ore, not rock. Something soft. It bled. We thought it was an animal at first, but it just kept going. The more we dug, the more it bled. We tried to stop. The walls scream at night. Day 19. Jonas is gone, left his tools behind, just blood where he stood. No one heard a thing. The blood's warm, still warm. It moves when we're not looking. Day 22. They want to seal it, lock it down, but it's too late. It's awake now. It knows we're up here. That's where the journal ended. Pages torn out, or maybe eaten away. I didn't want to know. I left the mine with my hands shaking, my clothes sticky with red. The air outside was heavier now, as if the mine had exhaled something into the woods. Behind me, the trees leaned closer. The sky was wrong when I returned. Davenmoor was no longer silent. Whispers drifted from every home, even the ones I knew were empty. They didn't say words, just syllables. Breathy, broken things that swirled together like a dying prayer. Curtains moved in windows that had no residents. Doors creaked open and shut in the breeze I couldn't feel. And then came the mist. Scarlet, not fog, mist. A low-hanging veil that rolled in from the tree line, thick and slow, curling around corners like fingers dragging themselves forward. It clung to my skin, stuck to my face like sweat. I tasted it on my tongue. Blood. The whole town smelled like it. Lights flickered in houses that hadn't had electricity for years. I saw shadows moving behind curtains, bent shapes, crooked figures pacing, watching, smiling. I ran to the inn. Edith stood at the top of the stairs, unmoving, staring down at me like she'd been waiting. "It started," she said. I asked her what I had seen. What was beneath the town? What was wrong with Davenmoor? She didn't blink. It wakes when it's hungry, and when it wakes, we feed it. That's how we keep the peace. I asked her what they fed it. She looked at me then, really looked, and her voice was quieter. Names. I didn't sleep that night. The mist never left. It slid past the windows in slow, deliberate waves. The breathing under the floorboards grew louder, like something was shifting, stretching, waiting. And in the darkest part of the night, I swear, I heard the mine moan. The ground trembled beneath me, and for a moment, I felt it. Something enormous, beneath the town, turning in its sleep. A great, blood-warm thing that remembered being disturbed, that remembered the miners, the digging, the screaming, and now it remembers me. Part 4. The Pact of Crimson Teeth. I didn't wait until morning. The whispers had grown too loud, the breathing beneath the floor too restless. The scarlet mist clung to the windows, watching like it was waiting for me to make a choice, or to run. But I wasn't leaving Davenmoor without answers. I went straight to Edith's room. The door wasn't locked. It opened before I could knock. She stood by the window, staring out into the red-tinged street, her hands folded neatly in front of her like she'd been expecting me. "You went to the mine," she said, her voice flat. I nodded. She didn't turn. "Then you know." "No," I told her. "I don't. Not everything. Not why this town breathes when it shouldn't. Not why the ground moans or the streets bleed or the names in the church altar keep changing. I want the truth, Edith. All of it." She sighed. It sounded like something inside her deflated. "You shouldn't have come here, Mia." I stepped closer. Too late for that. She finally turned to face me. Her eyes looked older now. Not tired. Hollow. Like the truth had eaten something out of her a long time ago. "You think Davenmoor's cursed," she said. "But it isn't. We're protected. That's the price." "What price?" Her smile was cold. "The vein." She moved to the old dresser in the corner and opened the top drawer. From beneath a stack of faded linens, she pulled out a small box. Wood, stained, dark. She opened it slowly, as if the contents might bite. Inside were teeth. Human. Sharp. Some filed to points. Others bent like claws. All stained the same deep red, as if they'd soaked too long in blood that refused to wash away. "Our ancestors called it a god," she said. "But gods give freely. This one bleeds." She sat at the edge of the bed, the box resting in her lap. It started long before the mine, before the church, before the name Davenmoor ever showed up on a map. "The earth here, it leaks, not oil, not water. Blood, living blood, warm, endless. The old ones said it whispered to them, promised safety, fertility, gold, but it wanted something in return." I felt my skin crawl. "It wanted blood. Always has," Edith whispered. "We tried livestock first. Chickens, cattle. But the vein has taste." It knew the difference. "And the names in the church?" She nodded. "At first they were volunteers. The sick, the dying, the desperate. We'd carve their names into the altar and offer their blood below. The town flourished. Crops grew when the rest of the region starved. People came from miles away to buy our meat, our milk, our grain. They didn't ask why it tasted sweeter." She looked at me then, and I saw the years carved into her face like the names in the altar. But the world moved on. People left, stopped writing about us. Roads got rerouted, we faded, and the vein, it grew hungry. "So you started choosing people." Edith didn't answer. She didn't have to. I felt it then, in my stomach. That slow-turning dread, heavy and certain. "You've been offering sacrifices." "The blood keeps us safe," she said quietly. "It sleeps as long as it's fed. A life every moon. A name, carved deep. The blood must flow. And the names, they must never run dry." I shook my head. "That's murder." She blinked, slow and sad. "It's survival." The silence hung between us, thick as fog. "I read the miners' journals," I said. "They found it. The vein. Deep underground. And it didn't stop bleeding." She nodded. "They dug too far. It opened the wound. But the vein's been here long before picks and drills. It is the wound, and we built this town around it like bandages wrapped around rot." "And me?" I asked. "Why is it worse now? Why are the whispers louder? Why is the blood back?" "You brought attention," Edith said. "Your questions, your pictures. You're shining light into a place that survives in shadow. The more people remember Davenmoor, the more it needs to be fed. Memory draws its hunger." My mouth went dry. "So, what now?" She stood, slowly, like someone rising for a sermon. Her fingers traced the rim of the box. "The pact was sealed in crimson teeth," she said, "in blood willingly given. But now? Now it's watching you, Mia, listening. If you stay, your name will find the altar, If you leave, it might follow. I backed toward the door. Then I'll expose it. I'll make people look. I'll tell the world what's happening here. Edith shook her head. That's what it wants. Attention, worship, chaos. You don't understand. There were others. Journalists, investigators. Some left, most didn't. But every time someone tells the story, the vein pulses louder. Behind us, the floorboards creaked. Not from weight, from breath. Deep, slow, hungry. I turned to the window. The mist had returned, and in the distance, just beyond the tree line, the sky shimmered with a faint, bleeding light. Like something massive was moving beneath the soil, turning toward me. Waiting. Edith's voice broke the silence. Davenmoor isn't cursed, Mia. It's chosen. And now, so are you. Part 5. The Harvesting Moon. I woke to rope burning my wrists and the smell of old blood thick in my nose. The moon was full, bloated like an overripe fruit, and hanging low enough I thought it might scrape against the church spire. Its light wasn't silver. It was the color of dried scabs, the crusted red-brown of something rotten. The townspeople surrounded me in a wide circle, their faces slack, trance-like. Some held torches, others clutched knives. They moved slowly, rhythmically, like dancers in a ritual they didn't want to remember. Their clothes were stained red, not from the ceremony, not yet. This was older. These were garments passed down, worn only on the night of the harvesting moon. I was gagged, bound at the ankles and wrists, and dragged toward the mine entrance like an offering. I tried to scream but only choked on my own breath. No one looked at me, not with pity, not with hatred. Just resignation, like I was another name on a list, another drop in the bucket of endless blood they owed. Edith stood at the front, dressed in black lace with a crown of rusted iron thorns. Her mouth moved, chanting something too old for language. Her eyes never blinked. And then, from behind the crowd, I saw her. Leah, the child. She was crying, but not loudly, silently, tears streaking through the dust on her cheeks. She looked, around once, then slipped behind me like a shadow. Her tiny hands worked the knots at my wrist. No hesitation, no fear. When the rope loosened, I didn't wait. I broke into a run, stumbling over the uneven ground, the gag still hanging from my mouth, my hands still half bound. Someone shouted. Another followed. A torch hit the dirt behind me. I didn't look back because the town had begun to bleed, not just the streets, the buildings. Blood poured from window frames, thick and fast, running down walls like sweat from a fevered corpse. The trees dripped crimson from their trunks, sap replaced with gore. Even the sky looked bruised, black clouds crawling across the stars, like rot spreading across flesh. The townspeople screamed, some dropped to their knees, others clawed at their own faces. The blood touched them, and they remembered what they'd done, who they'd sacrificed, and how many had begged not to die. I fled into the mine. The darkness swallowed me like a mouth. No flashlight, no phone, just the sound of my own panicked breaths and the wet squelch of blood underfoot. The mine walls pulsed, not figuratively. They moved, like veins carrying something deeper in. I ran blindly, deeper, tripping over stones slick with something warm and fresh. The mine groaned around me, a sound like meat tearing. Then I saw it, the vein. Not a tunnel, not a creature, a wall. A living, heaving wall of muscle, slick with blood, arteries the size of tree trunks pumping slowly, steadily. Its surface quivered with each beat, as if listening, and then it spoke, not aloud. Inside my head, you, witness, memory. I froze. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. You saw. You know, you carry my name now. My lips moved, but no sound came. It pulsed, a rhythm older than language, older than bone. I could feel it in my own veins, responding, sinking. I wasn't breathing anymore. I was joining. Join me. Be what they fear, or bleed for what they forgot. It showed me things, visions, not dreams, cities drowning in blood, children born with mouths full of teeth, oceans turning red, the veins stretched beneath them all, coiled like roots through soil. It wasn't just under Davenmoor. It was everywhere, waiting to be fed. I fell to my knees. It whispered one last thing. Truth is meat. Speak it, and I will eat. And then it opened. The wall split down the middle like a wound, revealing a hallway made of raw flesh, glowing with red light from some unseen source. It wanted me to enter, to become, but I ran. I don't remember how I got out, just the screaming, the blood, the town collapsing in on itself like a punctured lung. I emerged into the forest, half covered in gore, shaking and wild-eyed. Behind me, Davenmoor groaned. Houses cracked, trees split, and the bleeding never stopped. I don't know how far I ran, but I know what it said is true. I carry it now. The memory, the witness mark, the thing beneath the world is no longer asleep, and it knows my name. Part 6. The town that bleeds. The last thing I remember is screaming. Not mine, theirs. The people of Davenmoor, wailing as the vein tore them apart. The sound of flesh being flayed by invisible teeth. The trees cracking open, bleeding down, their trunks like veins that had finally reached the surface. And through it all, the whisper in my mind growing louder, hungrier. Truth is meat. Speak it, and I will eat. I tried. God, I tried. The last entry on my recorder was me, stumbling through the mine's entrance, the red mist curling around my feet, lungs heaving, blood soaking through my shirt from a wound I couldn't remember getting. My voice was hoarse. I didn't know if I was talking to myself, or to the vein, or if there was even a difference anymore. This is Mia Langston. Davenmoor is real. The blood is real. The vein is real. It's not a metaphor. It's not folklore. It breathes. It watches. It remembers. If you're hearing this, run. And then the sound of tearing. Bone, sinew. A scream cut off mid-word. Not by silence, but by something wet. The tape ends there. A month later, a new crew arrived. Another investigative team, armed with satellite phones, drones, Geiger counters. Young faces hiding behind confidence and curiosity, the way I had. Before Davenmoor turned me inside out, they found the town silent, not empty, just still. No birds, no wind. The mist hung around the roofs like something sleeping. The buildings were intact but sagging, as if relieved to no longer pretend to be alive. The inn's front door creaked open when touched, revealing cold teacups on the counter and a single chair overturned. Edith was gone. The residents, gone. The fields, wilted. The trees, split down the middle. But the blood remained. Slick, streets, glistening though the day was cool and dry. No footprints, just red. They followed the trail to the church. The doors were ajar, the pews still stained. The altar stood unchanged, almost. Where once there had been dozens of names carved into the wood, there was now only one, fresh, sharp, still weeping red from each letter. Mia Langston. The camera they found was half buried outside the mine, its casing dented, lens cracked, but the memory card was intact. They watched it, huddled around a screen, pale-faced and wide-eyed as the footage played. The bleeding walls, the pulsing flesh, the silhouette of something vast just beyond the flashlight's reach. Mia's voice, broken and breathless. It wants to be known, but never named. We gave it form by looking too long. Don't name it. Don't remember it. Don't. Static. Then the whisper. Low. Guttural. Not a word. A need. Like hunger carved into sound. They packed up that night. Didn't even wait until morning. Left their tents. Their equipment, everything behind, just fled. Whatever scientific curiosity they had drowned beneath the realization that what they'd found wasn't something that could be studied. It wasn't meant to be understood. It was meant to be fed. And still, the town waits. They come, one by one. Bloggers, YouTubers, truth seekers, drawn in by whispers of cursed towns and bleeding ground. Drawn by Mia's story, half uploaded, half warned. And each time the streets begin to glisten again, just a little at first. A smear on a step, a drip in the gutter, the scent of iron in the air, then more, faster, warmer, like a wound reopening. The vein never sleeps, it only waits. And Davenmoor, it bleeds for every name remembered, for every story told. And you're listening, aren't you? You've heard Mia's name. You've spoken it in your mind. That's how it begins. The ground under your feet may not feel different yet. The air may still taste clean, but soon you'll notice the smell. The red in the drain that wasn't rust. The way your faucet runs warm even on cold days. You'll hear something breathing beneath your floorboards. And the next time the moon is full, not white, not gold, but dark and red and grinning, you'll remember this. The town never ends, it only spreads. Davenmoor is silent now, but it's never truly gone. The blood may dry, the names may fade, but the story lingers, in whispers, in dreams, in you. If this tale left something crawling under your skin, there's more waiting. Dark towns, forgotten places, stories that don't end when the screen goes black. Like, share, and subscribe to Haunted Echoes, where every story leaves a scar. And remember, some echoes weren't meant to fade.